Welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulan Zale. Now, tonight we begin from the Senate, where all senators have been barred from traveling outside the country to ensure maximum numbers in the House ahead of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Our very own political affairs correspondent Emmanuel Toh now explains that Gachagua will face all the 67 senators after the motion to form an 11-member special committee failed in a process that Parliament appears appears keen to finish at top speed.
181.
Hours after he was impeached by 282 members against 44 at the National Assembly, the stage is already set for the proposed removal from office for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua at the Senate next week.
Honourable Senators annexed to the message.
In a bid to ensure maximum numbers of members during the session, the Speaker of the Senate has written to all the 67 senators restricting their movement out of the country. In a letter dated 8th October 2024, Kingi says, quote, all travel by honourable senators and members of staff in the Senate outside the country have forthwith been put on hold. This, he says, is to ensure that all senators are able to prioritize their participation in these important proceedings without distractions or disruptions. All committees outside Nairobi have also been put on hold beginning Tuesday 8th October to Saturday 19th October. This comes as the DP is expected to know his fate next week after senators set Wednesday next week for the commencement of the hearings on his proposed removal from office. A motion to form a special committee failed to take off as it had no seconder, which means the matter will be dealt with in plenary.
And the Senate shall then investigate the matter in plenary on Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th of October 2024.
Some members allied to the DP raising concerns over the two-day period to hear the impeachment.
Would it be in order to request that, as per your direction, you increase even an extra day? Mr. Speaker, justice should not only be done, but should be seen to be done, Mr. Speaker.
I wish you would allow that even if we get to Thursday and we have not gotten to debating, you can allow us to come on Friday, debate and vote.
Once we see the documentation and the list of witnesses, and it becomes obvious that we cannot conclude this matter within 2 days, we have Friday.
The teams representing Gachagua and the National Assembly are expected to file their responses by Monday, 14th October at 5 p.m. The DP is expected to defend himself on Thursday, a day after the mover, Kibwezi West MP Mwengi Mutuse, makes his case before the senators. This as the embattled DP turned to the Bible moments after his impeachment by the National Assembly, quoting the book of 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 18 and the book of Jeremiah 30 verse 19 for consolation after MPs voted overwhelmingly to show him the door. The Senate has 10 days from today, Tuesday, to consider the special motion in accordance with Article 145 and 150 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The motion will require the backing of 45 members, that is 2/3 majority, to sail through. Senators are also expected to consider the impeachment motion of Kericho Governor Dr. Eric Mutai on Monday and Tuesday next week. After failing to convince the members of the National Assembly to hear his case in the impeachment motion, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua will be making another attempt in just a week to try and convince the senators to hear him out in an impeachment motion that may seal his political future. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV, Parliament, Nairobi.
All right, Emmanuel, thanks so much for that. Now, the High Court will on Friday rule whether to refer Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment challenge to the Chief Justice for the appointment of a multi-judge bench. Gachagua's legal team, led by Senior Counsel Paul Mwite, argues that the case raises significant constitutional issues as it is the first time involving a Deputy President's impeachment. Now, the Deputy President's legal team says there is need for proof of gross constitutional violations. However, the National Assembly's lawyers contend the matter can be resolved without paneling additional judges. Let's get more from our very own Willie Lusige.
181. A day after 282 members of parliament voted in favor of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's impeachment, surpassing the constitutional requirement of 233 votes, his defense team carried on with a push in court to block his ouster. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagwa's lead counsel, Paul Mwite, called for the case to be referred to the Chief Justice Martha Koome to appoint a 3-judge bench, citing the need for a thorough review of the public participation and impeachment procedures.
When giving directions to accede to our request for this matter to be taken to the Chief Justice.
Gachagwa's legal team highlighted that the impeachment procedures differ between the president, deputy president and governors, stressing the lack of proper public participation, which they argue was rushed and unfair.
How do you conduct civic education and take to the voters only one side of the matter, the allegations, before you give the subject of impeachment the opportunity to state? Then you take both the allegations and the answer to the citizens so that they can make an informed decision.
They insisted that the DP should have been allowed to respond to the allegations in Parliament before public participation took place. Gachagua claimed the public's input was sought prematurely, infringing on his right to defend himself before Kenyans made their judgment.
On the basis, Your Lordship, is that the National Assembly is now functus official. The petitions before you, Your Lordship, seeks to interrogate the conduct of that organ that is now functus official.
You've been told the issues we raised have been overtaken by events. But Lord, anything done contrary to the Constitution is a nullity if the court agrees.
The National Assembly lawyers told the court that the Senate is now seized of the matter and the court's involvement is unnecessary, as the legal challenge had been launched when the matter was in the National Assembly. They believe the DP's claim have been overtaken by events as the impeachment vote was carried out properly.
We therefore respectfully submit that there is no jurisdiction for you to transfer the files to the presiding judge.
The Law Society of Kenya, LSK, has been enjoined in the case as 22 petitions across the country challenge the impeachment. These include 5 petitions that were presented before Justice Lawrence Mugambi, with others before Justice Chacha Mwita. Among the petitioners is Nicholas Mweu, who contests the legitimacy of the process.
What I can do is I will go and write a ruling.
Yes.
What if you come on Friday morning?
The National Assembly and the Senate are also parties in the various legal challenges. One petition that had challenged the public participation process was withdrawn on Wednesday, with the petitioners saying it had been overtaken by events. Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
All right, Willie, thanks so much for that. Now, the vote by 282 members of parliament to impeach Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua at the National Assembly against a dissenting vote of 44 MPs revealed deep-seated dissatisfaction with the Deputy President, even among leaders from his backyard, signaling a rare unity across party lines aimed at sending him packing. Now, the voting patterns indicate strong party influence, with the opposition leaders on the front lines, while some leaders from Wiper Party tried to rescue Gachagua. Notable figures like Babu Owino and Ndindi Nyoro chose to skip the session. Let's get more from our very own Melita Oletenges.
The writing was on the wall for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, both the ruling party and the opposition exposing his dwindling support. The 282 representatives who voted to impeach him made up a collage of members of parliament from the ruling UDA party and the opposition ODM party, and a sprinkling of members of other smaller parliamentary parties.
Some have told me and have told us that this is not our war. But, Mr. Speaker, they do not know that in circumstances of combat, a bystander is at greater risk than a combatant.
The opposition-spirited arguments represented a striking departure from the previous government dynamics, where opposition voices were often drowned out.
We cannot allow the driver to die because it is an issue. We are witnessing a situation where the Makanga wants to take the steering by force.
Yet, amid this overwhelming display of unity, significant dissenting voices emerged from ODM, challenging the grounds of impeachment.
I'm at pain, Honorable Speaker, going through this to find anything that has been proved beyond reasonable doubt to move this House, Honorable Speaker, to take such a drastic action.
The resounding vote against Deputy President Gachagua from his backyard, despite a chorus of protests from his supporters, spoke volumes. Duncan Maina Madenge of Nyeri Central, Eric Wamumbi of Madera, Michael Wambogo of Odhaya voted to impeach the deputy president. Interestingly, Rahab Mukami of Nyeri and Njoroge Wainaina of Kieni had shifted positions against impeaching Gachagua, opting for absence rather than a vote. On the flip side, John Kagusha of Mukurueni and Geoffrey Wandeto voted against the impeachment motion. Among the 44 MPs who rallied to save the deputy president, several were from the Wiper Democratic Party, including Julius Mawathe of Embakasi South, Robert Mbui of Kathiani, Jessica Mbalu of Kibwezi East, and Makali Mulu of Kitui Central.
Mr. Speaker, if we have to find a situation where a school has failed, you do not fire the deputy principal. You get rid of the principal.
Notable absent MPs who skipped the vote include Babu Owino of Embakasi East, Ndindi Nyoro of Kiharu, Mark Mwenje of Embakasi West, and Naisula Lesuuda of Samburu West. The voting patterns and the absence of key figures hint at a shifting political landscape as the DP faces adversity from within, which could shape future political alignments. Melita Oletenge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
All right, Melita, thanks so much for that. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua fought more than the 11 grounds for his impeachment in the National Assembly on Tuesday. The MPs also shined a light on issues that were outside the impeachment grounds, focusing on their personal perceptions of his conduct and how he related with them. For that, we get more from our very own Brenda Wanga.
There to be integrity in the political governance of our country. Rigathi Gachagua must.
While Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was prepared to defend himself against the 11 grounds tabled for his impeachment, he quickly found himself prosecuted for a whole lot more issues.
When I hear someone saying there are things which are not personal, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell them.
The personality and character of the Deputy President was put on the scales and found wanting by the MPs who picked apart the DP's conduct and his attitude towards his junior and particularly women MPs, landing him near fatal blows from the MPs.
He has been attacking women and especially members of parliament, me and others included.
Kwa mfano, aliita mmoja wetu Mheshimiwa Jematia na kumuita malaya. Unapoita mwanamke yoyote malaya, umeita wamama wote wa Kenya malaya.
The MPs also faulted Gachagua for what they termed as selective performance of his duties and his treatment of legislators who came to him for help on behalf of their constituents.
I humbled myself and requested and asked the Deputy President to intervene so that those houses, Mr. Speaker, a parcel of 4,000 acres, 325 acres, I requested him to have the 300 acres where the houses were seated, to have those people even pay to Portland. But the names he called me, Mr. Speaker, I cannot call them here.
He went ahead to refer to the members of Parliament from Mount Kenya region as Gakonia and Kunda Gotome and Komereras, Honorable Speaker. That is not acceptable, Honorable Speaker.
The Deputy President on that occasion did stand up and tell the President to our face that he had come down to get him from the Nyanza tour that we were undertaking and that he had no business staying for too long in Nyanza. I looked at him and I wondered what was the problem with his compos mentis. In other words, was he of sound mind?
There was also attention on his alleged treatment of members of his extended family, with MPs levelling and prosecuting extra charges of mistreatment of his late brother's family.
If there is no other reason that has brought us here, Honourable Speaker, it is to protect the family that is being disinherited of their property under coercion, blackmail and threats.
No, the former Deputy President of Kenya should know that when you touch anything of the orphans, it is not Kenya Kwanza, it is not Azimio, but it is God Almighty that will pull the fire on you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
And it wasn't just the perceptions of his behavior and utterances before the impeachment that rubbed the MPs the wrong way. His description of the August House as a theatre of the absurd just hours before the proceedings also appeared to have fortified his fate.
If the Deputy President had been quiet, he would have carried many people in this house. But he did not tame the tongue.
Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
All right, Brenda, thanks so much for that. Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has dragged President William Ruto into his woes by making the case that he is being tried unfairly for simply being a, quote, good student. Now, Gachagua on Tuesday tabled video evidence of Ruto publicly disparaging security agencies not only as Deputy President, but as President as well, a perceived offence for which he is being indicted by the National Assembly. Let's get more from our very own Olive Burrows.
Fuata Nyayo. Following in the footsteps of one's predecessor has long been a fixture of Kenyan politics with respect to the presidency. A tribute paid by the founding fathers that appears to have carried on to the present day. At least according to the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who is facing imminent impeachment by the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency the Deputy President.
Gachagua on Monday and Tuesday made the case that he has been crucified by the National Assembly for faithfully following in the footsteps of President William Ruto, who first held the office he presently occupies as Deputy President and with whom he now serves. In a media briefing televised nationwide on Monday night, the Deputy President defended his criticism of the National Intelligence Service as led by Director General Noordin Haji for failing to raise the alarm on the gravity of public discontent with regard to the 2024 Finance Bill that saw institutions of governance defaced.
And the problem is simple. The Director General of the National Intelligence Service, Noordin Haji, was a junior officer in the National Intelligence Service before he was appointed as DPP. When he was appointed to the office of the Director General, because of inferiority complex, he chased away all the people who were senior to him when he was in the service.
Other than framing such criticism on Monday and Tuesday as a common occurrence in the developed world, calling to mind the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, he also pointed out the double standard of prosecuting him for a perceived offence for which his senior President Ruto set the example.
In fact, I'll have videos. President William Ruto as Deputy President at one time criticized the then Director General of the National Intelligence Service. In another video, he heavily criticized the then Inspector General of Police for underperformance. I have learned from my boss how this job is done.
Order. And true to his word, come Tuesday, when he formally mounted a defense against impeachment before the National Assembly, he presented the video evidence.
I have had an argument that we should not call out those in the security sector. I would like you to play the next video, where I have the most incompetent Inspector General of Police, I think, in the world. The most incompetent in the whole world. Ule mtu anaitwa Kinoti, awache ujinga. Huyo bwana Kiboti, awache ujinga. Honorable members, that was President William Ruto as Deputy President, criticizing IG Mutiabai, DCI Kinoti. Rigathi Gachagua has learned his job from his boss. And I never saw anybody bring William Ruto here for impeachment, for criticizing the IG or the DCI. This is a very unfair allegation.
In so doing, among other parallels drawn between his conduct and that of President Ruto, both as deputy and president, Gachagua sought to make the case that what is good for the goose is good for the gander.
Asanteni sana.
Olive Burrows, Citizen TV.
All right, Olive, thanks so much for that. It's time to bring in arguably the best political tag team on TV. It's been a minute since they've been on the bench. Dr. PLO Lumumba, constitutional lawyer. Dr. Barack Maluka, political analyst. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Thanks so much for your time.
Indeed.
We are living in very troubled times, PLO. We'll get to your letter to the president a little shortly, in a little while. But for now, what went wrong? How could things have gone so wrong in 2 years?
You see, Jeff, when there is a marriage of convenience which is not underpinned by ideals which are in the best interest of the nation, then you get where you get. And this is the tragedy of our country, that our country is not a country where people enter into arrangements which are in the best interest of the country. These are marriages of convenience which are transacted for very transient things. And when that happens, when one has gotten the animal that they were hunting, then they forget that indeed there is a nation to be served. It is tragic. Is it without precedent, even in the continent of Africa, that a thing such as this, to demonstrate how low we have sunk, for the last 2 weeks, what has dominated newspaper headlines, what has dominated the news is not the education system which is failing. It is not the economy which is in doldrums. It is not the insecurity. It is not the national health system. It is not our assets which are being leased out or sold in an improper manner, but a battle of egos. When you listen to the parliamentarians, the ground that they are giving, we were disrespected, and for that reason, we've got to impeach him. Whether he's impeached or not is another debate. For the first time, I saw parliamentarians in their numbers animated. I've never seen them that animated in order to produce the long knives that they had been sharpening. It is a tragedy of gigantic proportions.
Absolutely. Barack, you agree?
Absolutely, Jeff. First, the marriage of convenience that PLO talks about is a marriage that is informed by vows that were taken in secrecy, vows that we know nothing about, vows that the deputy president, who in my view is in the process of being impeached, because the way I understand the law, he has not yet been impeached. The motion of impeachment has sailed through, and the impeachment proper begins in the Senate. However, the deputy president and the president took marriage vows in secrecy. We don't know what they promised one another. There were other possible partners. We have heard of Professor Kithure Kindiki, and we have heard that he was the more preferred between the two. But for whatever reason, reasons not disclosed, but which we are allowed to speculate about because we have the capacity, the ability, and the proclivity to speculate, and I think quite correctly so, that they must have included promissory notes about certain things which would be fulfilled in the post-nuptial dispensation, in which case we heard that Rigiji, the deputy president, was deeply endowed in the pockets,
and that there were lots of funds that he produced that went towards the campaign. In this country of kusema na kutenda, kutenda meaning tendering, in this country of shareholding, I see every possibility that Rigathi Gachagua was told that in the government that we are going to form, you are going to enjoy a certain percentage of tendering, and which has not happened. And that tendering was meant to recoup his investment in the election. And that has not happened. And that's why he keeps on talking about President Ruto should keep his promises. I see that it all pertains to informal government and the things that happen in informal government. I see that it pertains to Adani, it pertains to Shah, it pertains to ongoing things in the power and energy sector. It pertains to what we have described previously as prebendalism, that part of the entitlement for people who hold public office is extra-legal and sometimes absolutely illegal access to public resources.
PLO, real quick, before we go to break, isn't it sad, or is it a deliberate move that the president his silence has been deafening in all of this?
Deafening indeed, and I think silence betokens consent. The silence is silence most eloquent. That those who work and are guided by me do what has been commanded quietly. And the enthusiasm of the members of parliament, it is enthusiasm without precedent. It is the kind of enthusiasm that you see when you listen to the speaker outside of parliament, you listen to the deputy speaker outside of parliament. Those who are going to preside have already made a decision. So that when the individual, the deputy president, is taken to the slaughter, it is almost a done deal. And when you see the speed with which gazette notices are issued, when you see the speed with which documents relating to public participation are prepared in a country where we claim there is no money, when you see the availability of funds which are then deployed, it tells you that this is something that is sealed at the very top, and that the goose is cooked for the deputy president.
Goose is cooked.
Ab initio.
Ab initio. I need to go get my dictionary.
Ab initio.
And my thesaurus. I told you, folks, it's the best political tag team on TV. Dr. PLO Lumumba, Dr. Barack Maluka in the House talking more about this impeachment and the way forward. Where do we go from here? I tell you, it's a slippery slope any way you look at it. We're going to take a break, come back, plenty more ahead. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is JKLIVE. JKLIVE takes a break. We'll be back. In the meantime, coming up, house as is Dr. Barack Maluka. You know you don't want to miss that. In other news, tonight, an autopsy on the body of murdered taxi driver Victoria Mumbua Moloki shows that she was hit by a blunt object and then strangled to death. As our crimes reporter Franklin Nwara reports, detectives say the main suspect in the murder of the Mombasa-based taxi driver has confessed to have killed Victoria before driving for several kilometers with her dead body and then dumping it in Mai Mahio. Take a listen.
Old Victoria Mumbua Moloki was hit several times on the head with a blunt object before her assailant strangled her to death.
The late Mumbua had several injuries, which included a severe head injury. The assailant hit her several times on the head. Further to that, the assailant later on strangled her to death.
Government pathologist Dr. Johansen Odor, who conducted the autopsy on her body, revealed that the young mother did not go down without a fight.
There are also what looked like defensive injury along the arms, meaning that she was trying to defend herself also.
Odor says her body had physical injuries, implying her killer was intentional. More samples have been taken for further tests, and this is crucial for investigators. Her family says the mother of 3 was only trying to fend for her children. Unfortunately, as fate would have it, this has been dealt a big blow.
Tafika mahali pia tuombe wa Kenya watusaidie in terms of kuangalia wale watoto na kuwasomesha. So as a family we'll come up with a pay bill number yenye maybe tutashare na Wakenya watusaidie mahali wanapoweza.
As this happened, a group of online taxi drivers took to the streets in Mombasa demanding justice for the killing of Victoria.
Jamaa mwenye aliarestiwa is committed similar crimes before. The recent one ikiwa this year July. Alichukua gari ikiwa na dereva Kisii na akaua huyo dereva na akamtupa mahali. Dereva alipatikana kama ameuliwa. Kwa hivyo kama security agencies wangekuwa wamefanya kazi yao na kumuarrest before akuje kupatana na Victoria angekuwa alive.
Uko hatarini sana because we are not protected by the government. They are not protecting us. Because this person has been scot-free all along. Now, we don't understand and we want justice. This time we want justice. This person has to pay for the killings he has done.
As the family awaits comprehensive results, a dedicated team of homicide detectives is piecing together details into Mumba's murder. Detectives plan to revisit all crime scenes in pursuit of CCTV footage and to forensically place the suspect at the scenes of crime. The suspect, Edwin Ngetich, has so far taken detectives to Mount Elgon, Butere, Uasin Gishu and Nakuru, where police have recovered 5 motor vehicles. It is believed Ngetich abducted the owners of the motor vehicles before stealing their cars. In July 2024, he is alleged to have abducted and killed George Njuguna, a taxi driver. Edwin has 2 murder cases and 2 robbery with violence cases involving taxi drivers. There are fears he might have killed more people. Police say after abducting his victims, Edwin would take their motor vehicles and use them to transport drugs or refugees as part of a human trafficking syndicate. In his confession, Edwin told police that on the 27th September, he made a ride request to Victoria while in Mombasa. In the middle of the ride, he attacked the lady and assaulted her several times. He also tied her on the back seat in the car. At this point, he took control of the motor vehicle and drove towards Nairobi. While within Kibwezi, the lady was pleading for him to let her free. He parked the car and strangled her to death. He drove all the way with the body to Maimayo and dumped it in a thicket within Lari. Having successfully eliminated his victim, his last stop with a motor vehicle was in Nakuru, where he was arrested and detained.
An ambitious Victoria Muloki thought the ride request will be like any other. Unfortunately, the young mother will be abducted, tortured and killed. If the motive was to steal her car, then why did they have to end her life? Franklin Wala, Citizen TV. Did they have to end her life? Franklin Wala, Citizen TV.
All right, Franklin, thanks so much for that. At the same time, activist Bob Njagi says he will move to court to sue government over his abduction and inhumane treatment during his 32 days in captivity in a dark room. Njagi, in a tell-all interview with members of the press, narrated how he was kept in a dark room without human interaction and only allowed to shower once a week by his abductors. He said he had been arrested twice during the anti-government protests that rocked the country and claims he has been targeted despite following due process in organizing demonstrations in Kitengela in Kajiado County. Njagi says the abduction will not stop him and his resolve to fight for a better country. Let's get more from our very own Jorogi Gatete.
I was left on the floor, handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days without food, only some water. That was
People power. People power.
Bob Njagi breaks down during an interview to narrate his 32 days ordeal in the hands of his abductors.
People power. Who are the people?
We are the people. Fellow activists console him. Through songs and chants, the group encourage him to be strong.
Viva Bob Njagi, viva.
Viva.
Viva Bob Njagi, viva.
Viva. And after a few minutes, he opens his heart. 20 days after his release at night and his subsequent dumping in Tigoni, Kiambu County, Njagi remembers vividly events of August 19th when 4 masked men forcibly removed him from a matatu, claiming he was in possession of a firearm.
The officers shoved me out of the bus forcefully while assaulting me with kicks, blows, slaps, jacking me off my feet and carrying me shoulder high into an awaiting white car. Inside the white vehicle were 5 men, 2 in the front and 3 at the back. We drove for close to an hour, while all the time I was assaulted until we came to a sudden stop.
He was transferred to a different car where 4 men were waiting. They drove for about 30 minutes before getting to their destination.
I was whisked away into a building and ushered into a small and very dark room. It was the size of 6 feet by 4 feet. I was left on the floor handcuffed at the back and blindfolded for 2 days without food. Only some water that was administered occasionally by one of the men.
From here, he was moved to a different dark room where there was a mattress and blanket. It is here where the activists suffered psychological torture. No human interaction, no access to sunlight.
The only human interaction I got was when the door would be opened twice a day. In the morning, they would open and hand me a cup of tea while removing the waste bucket and replacing it with another one. During lunch hour, I was served with a meal that would barely keep me alive. The food was unpalatable, but I forced myself to eat in order to get some strength and to live to see another day, hoping and praying that God would rescue me from this ordeal. Once a week, I would be led blindfolded into a room where I showered for 10 minutes before returning back to my cell.
Njagi, who claims to have been targeted during the anti-government protests, has confirmed having been arrested twice before his abduction. The activist who was kidnapped and released at about the same time that 2 brothers, Aslam Longton and Jamil Longton were, says he has forgiven his abductors, who are believed to be security officials. He, however, says he will sue the government over what he terms as violation of his rights.
Watu ni nguvu, nguvu ni watu.
Fellow activists have condemned the recent cases of abductions and called on President William Ruto to act.
Our voices must be heard, and it won't be suppressed with abductions. It won't be suppressed with unlawful arrest. It won't be suppressed by killings.
That everybody that has suffered under the hands of this government has to be compensated materially, and even, a public apology be made.
The activists have challenged the government to address the challenge of unemployment and corruption in the country. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Kajiado County.
Who is going to speak? All right, Gatete, thanks so much for that. More sad news. And the family of Mercy Kwamboka, a student at the University of Nairobi's Chiromo campus, who was found murdered and her body dumped in a thicket in Mwiki, is seeking justice. Kwamboka's family is questioning how she disappeared from home in Pipeline area in Nairobi on the 28th of September at around 11 p.m., only for Good Samaritans to find her dumped and left for dead in the thickets in Mwiki. Odie Francis has the details.
This is a tragic case of murder that has shocked this neighborhood. The murder of a University of Nairobi student, 20-year-old Mercy Kwamboka, is said to have received a phone call on that fateful day at around 11 p.m. while at her home in Pipeline area in Nairobi.
Na walimtesa sana sababu mguu umefunjwa kabisa hivi kama miwa. Amefurutwa chini, amefurutwa hii nywele, iko chafu kabisa. Na amemwagiwa asidi kwa mikono.
Citizen TV was in Mwiki area where Kwamboka was found gasping for breath before she lost the battle.
Nilikuja na nikapata yeye amelala hapo. Alikuwa amelala.
Kama amefunjika.
Kama amefunjika mguu. Hana trouser lakini amebaki na mguu tu ya ndani. Alikuwa night dress? Si hata night dress. Nguo tu ya ndani. Kuna simu. Ilikuwa imelala hapa. Insulator yake ya simu ilikuwa na 1000.
Ulifungua kuangalia?
Sikufungua. Ni insulator transparent. Transparent. Na blanketi.
Blanketi ilikuwa hapo pia.
Blanketi na kiatu moja black. Kama hii open shoe.
The first witness, whose identity we have concealed for safety reasons, described how he discovered Kwamboka.
Unaona hapa? Hapa ndiye alikuwa anajaribu venye atasimama ama ajaribu kutembea. Ni kama kitu iko imefanyika before akuje awekwe. Cause ni gari. Kuna gari ambayo ilikuja ikamweka. Hapa pamejifisha. Na hiyo gari haikutoka chini kukuja juu. Itoka juu kuteremka. So ni kama walikuwa wamepita once. So time ya pili kurudia wakaona hakuna ile wingi wa watu.
With her phone and money found intact at the scene of crime, police are investigating the motive of the murder and if the assailants were hitmen.
Hatujafikia ile uwezo wa kumfikisha Masi nyumbani. Tungependa kuomba serikali itusaidie.
It is at this spot where Masi Kwamboka, a student at the UON Chiromo campus, was found. At 1 p.m., Masi was still alive, though with serious injuries. Questions linger on how Masi was taken from pipeline all the way to this area. And finally, her body found in City Mortuary. Ode Francis, Citizen TV, Infinity, Mwiki, Nairobi County.
All right, OD, thanks so much for that. Now, switching gears altogether, and more Kenyans continue to win cash on the Jipange na Viusasa draw and win with the latest weekly million shilling draw. Now, being, some of the winners include Cyrus Gashadi from Kiambu County and Joseph Kamuri from Nyeri County. Kamuri, a young farmer from Nyeri, becomes the 7th winner to win the weekly Jipange na Viusasa draw of 1 million shillings. Now, he checked in at the offices here at the Viusasa offices in Nairobi and he says he plans to expand his agricultural business while hoping to win the 3 million shilling grand prize. Now, additional daily winners of 50,000 shillings include Emily Njeri, Ruth Nanuala, and Helen Gadhoni, among others. Now, participants in the competition have a chance to win 50,000 shillings every single day, 1 million shillings a week, by simply dialing *487 *3#. Again, *487 *3#, and selecting the Jipange na Viusasa option.
Tunakuaga na ingine hapa hivi pia, unajua vile inaitwa. Hii ni goodie bag pia. Na kashkara.
Nilikuwa tu kwa nyumba nimekaa, nikapigiwa simu nikaambiwa, ati mimi nimepata ushindi wa 50k.
Ulikuwa una expect kushinda hido?
Nilicheza tu once.
Haya.
Kwa nimelala Sunday. Sasa venye nilipigiwa, I was like, ni nani? Kitu ya kwanza tata hivi pale kwa church. Then hiyo ingine nitajilo tuna pole pole.
Inaweza kuwa ni wewe pia. *487 *3# is the magic code. Tuzidi kujipanga na Viusasa wadau. Win 50 Gs on a daily basis, 1 million shillings on a weekly basis, ama kuwa grand winner wa 3 milioni. Kwani utaki pesa wewe?
Kenya Airports Authority to spend another 7 million shillings to repair. It is exactly 4 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to JKLIVE Live here at Citizen Television. On to business news. And the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee has cut the benchmark interest rate by 75 basis points to 12%. This cut is expected to bring reprieve to borrowers grappling with expensive loans, which has been brought about by a rise in non-performing loans and a decline in the demand for credit. Let's get more from our very own Jasmine Wambui.
The central bank, through its Monetary Policy Committee, chaired by Dr. Kamau Thuge, has cut its lending rate from 12.75% to 12%. This is the largest rate cut since 2020. This cut comes at a time when the country has seen a sharp deceleration in credit to the private sector. The central bank is hopeful that this cut will trigger a fall in the cost of borrowing at a time when lenders have reported an upswing in non-performing loans.
The whole idea really of this sharp reduction in the CBR rate is to encourage the banks to lower their lending rates so that we can also reduce the NPLs and also encourage borrowing by the private sector from the banks.
The central bank says that the rate cut has been occasioned by a decline in inflation rates to 3.6%, sluggish economic growth in the second quarter of the year, and economic recovery on the global stage. Further, the Kenyan shilling has remained steady on account of an increase in inward remittances and the country's growing exports.
The global inflation has continued to moderate, mainly supported by lower commodity prices and the lagged effects of previous monetary policy tightening. Central banks in major economies, including the US Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, and also the Bank of Canada, have lowered interest rates with expectations of further reductions in the remainder of 2024.
The country's forex reserves now stand at $8.2 billion, which is equivalent to slightly above 4 months of import cover. The CBK affirms that the shilling will continue to do well despite looming rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. Before the recent rate cuts, the Monetary Policy Committee had raised the rates by 5.5 percentage points since the tightening began in May of 2022. Jasmine Wamboi, Citizen TV.
All right, Jasmine, thanks so much for that. At the same time, residents of Kakamega County have now called on the Kenya Airports Authority to rehabilitate the Kakamega airstrip and hand a lifeline to hundreds of businesses that were relying on the flight operations in and about the airstrip. Now, the call comes barely 1 week after budget airline Skyward Express announced the suspension of flights to Kakamega following the dilapidated state of the runway at the Kakamega airstrip. Laura Otieno visited the airstrip and now reports on how it has fallen into a state of disrepair barely 2 years after President Ruto commissioned it following renovations worth, get this, 170 million shillings. Take a listen.
A drive into the Kakamega airstrip paints a picture of destitution. A recent circular by airline Skyward Express blowing off the lead on the state of affairs at the airstrip. In the communique, Skyward Express pointed out that the condition of the runway could not meet their safety standards, necessitating the temporary suspension of flights to and from Kakamega. The decision impacting not only passengers but also business operators in the area.
Hapo nyuma ulikuwa unaona like biashara zina move swiftly. I had a friend, unasikia kama rafiki yako anakuambia I am traveling to Nairobi, in the next like 45 minutes anakuambia nimefika Nairobi.
Imefungwa saa hii. Inabidi sasa utumie gari ambao kutoka hapa Kakamega mpaka Nairobi unajua unatumia kama almost 10 hours. So inakuwa ugumu, saa zingine na affect meeting yenye umeenda inafanya inakansoliwa. So sisi tumeumia,
hatuna kazi hata saizi. Ukiambia mteja tunaenda airstrip anakuambia ningeenda lakini uwanja ilifunga. Kama unaweza nipeleka Mias nipeleke. Unapiga hesabu ya Mias anakuambia ya pesa yenye yezi fika Mias.
In December 2022, President William Ruto commissioned the Kakamega airstrip's runway, taxiway, as well as an expanded apron, following rehabilitation works undertaken by the Kenya Airports Authority at a cost of 174.4 million shillings. KAA has acknowledged the poor state of the runway, indicating that repair works costing 7 million shillings will commence on Thursday. Further, the authority will also have engineers audit the works done initially on the runway and that further repairs will be done in due course.
Biashara ilikuwa mzuri sana. Tulikuwa na wateja
Wakishuka pale tunapigiwa masimu, sisi wenyewe tunaenda kungoja pale, tunaleta town, tunawapeleka pale, lakini saa hii biashara imeenda chini sana.
During a development tour in the Western region in 2023, President William Ruto had revealed plans of expanding the runway at the Kakamega airstrip to allow larger aircraft to fly in and out of Kakamega. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
All right, Laura, thanks so much for that. On to our weekly feature, Smart Farm. And the Netherlands is renowned as the heart of the global flower industry, producing and trading some of the world's most beautiful and diverse blooms. Now, central to their industry is the Royal Flora Holland auction. That's the largest flower auction in the world. Here, millions of flowers are bought and sold every single day, connecting growers to international markets and setting global prices. On this week's Smart Farm, our very own Dennis Otieno tells us more as he got a glimpse of the tradition that has made Dutch flower farming a force to reckon with.
Every day in the early hours of the morning, the world's largest flower auction comes to life here at Royal Flora Holland. Located in Aalsmeer, the Netherlands, this floral hub is where the global flower trade begins.
We have received the flowers from all our suppliers, from the growers. The flowers are now being sold, and now we are distributing them to the buyers. And that process starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, from Monday till Friday, and it ends when the flowers are over.
With over 20 million flowers and plants traded daily, this auction is a marvel of logistics and efficiency. Buyers from around the world bid electronically, securing what they need for markets across Europe, Asia and beyond.
In a year, we sell approximately more than 10 billion flowers and plants at our marketplace. And we do that each day of the year, only on working days, and of course not on special days like Christmas. Most flowers that we are handling here are coming from the Netherlands, but in second place comes Kenya, in third comes Ethiopia, and then with the street length Israel and some other European countries. But for us, the African flower industry is very important because more than 2 billion roses are coming from Kenya and Ethiopia.
To understand the scale of operation, Royal Flora Holland spans over 1 million square meters, making it the largest building by footprint in the world. This is where flower growers, traders and exporters come together to shape the floral economy.
This building is as big as Vatican City in Rome, and the whole area is as big as the Principality of Monaco in the southern parts of France.
Dutch flower farming has been a centuries-old tradition that has evolved into a high-tech but sustainable business. Operations here are automated to ensure efficiency.
We have mechanized it as far as it's profitable to do it that way, because it's not that easy to make use of robotics to do the very difficult and specialized handling process of the flowers.
Once flowers are sold, they are immediately packed and shipped to florists, wholesalers and retailers around the world. They often arrive at their destination within 24 hours.
It's very important to focus on sustainability on different issues, and I think we all need to follow very well the demand of the consumers, but also the regulations, the new regulations on sustainability.
The Netherlands produces 1.7 billion cut flowers each year and accounts for roughly 60% of global trade, earning it the title of the Silicon Valley of the flower industry. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
All right, from business to sports, and newly hired Football Kenya Federation Chief Executive Officer Patrick Korir has hit the ground running just a day after taking over the office. Now, taking charge in his new role, Korir on Tuesday met with FKF staff to familiarize with the ongoing projects at the Federation. Now, he reassured the FKF staff of his commitment to fostering teamwork and driving the Federation forward amid the upcoming FKF elections and key footballing events, including the Under-23 AFCON CECAFA qualifiers, Junior Starlets participation in the upcoming FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup, as well as the Harambee Stars 2025 AFCON qualifiers.
Used to this seat, get to meet the staff, get to meet the departmental heads, get to understand what they're doing, and I can chip in with ideas here and there if need be. Otherwise, it's going to be as seamless operation as possible. How things have been done will continue from now. If there's going to be any changes, it's going to be very gradual. There'll be timelines to what we need to achieve.
At the same time, former FKF NEC member Tom Alila has officially announced his bid to become the next Football Kenya Federation president. He joins former international Sammy Kempes Owino and Moranga Seals vice chairman Hussein Mohammed as the three aspirants who have launched their bids for the FKF top seat.
The vision for the Federation is clear: to create football landscape where every player, coach, referee, fan, partners, and every stakeholder feels valued and empowered. We must also trust within our communities where every stakeholder can now see the decisions that are made where resources are allocated. We have been having problems again with resource allocation where football, the monies that are coming from FIFA, they are normally relocated to other areas, and it's now slowing down the development of the game in Kenya.
All right, from football to cycling, and the 2024 Africa Road Cycling Championships got off to a bright start in Eldoret in Uasin Gishu County, with Ugandan Charles Kagimu defending his title. Kagimu, who emerged triumphant at the All Africa Games in Ghana this year, scooped the time trial race, with Kenyans Joseph Kamau and David Kinja finishing 8th and 11th respectively. In the ladies category, Lucy Young of South Africa emerged victorious. Now, the South Africans also dominating in the under-23 category. In the women's elite race, Kenya's seasoned runner Tabu Masiga placed 6th ahead of team captain Nancy Akinyi.
Today is Uganda's Independence Day, so we are celebrating, I think, the 62nd independence exactly today. So that really powered me up. And I've lived in Iten or Eldoret, or rather Kaptagat.
Absolutely love the time trial discipline. Being a triathlete, that you would do for Ironman and half Ironmans. So me and my time trial bike are good friends. And today, just from the get-go, was awesome. Just felt strong, felt on top of the power.
And finally, it is all systems go for the 2024 Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon after Standard Chartered Bank announced a 100 million shilling sponsorship kitty. Now, the monies are aimed at streamlining preparations for this year's edition, which has attracted more than 25,000 participants. Now, the number of partners for this year's edition, slated for October 27th, has also increased, underlying the continued growth of the annual race. Registration has so far exceeded the 23,000 target, with the enrollment standing at a little more